And again, just at the end of the movie, the former head of German intelligence laughs and says, but you know the whole thing was staged, and we staged the hijacking, and we ran the terrorist. They ran the terrorist commanding the minions they sent who didn't even know. Can you believe the magnitude of that evil?
Yeah, and I think they're gearing up to do something like that again because, you know, as a chief security officer, I'm going to be involved in apparently the evacuation of London or a possible evacuation of London. That's exactly what they've told us. They actually spent quite a lot of time talking about the evacuation of London and this defining moment in the history of London, more so really than they told us about how to search someone and actually the mechanics of, you know, being a security officer. They were very keen on getting this information into us, that after the Olympics we would be involved in something. Now, they weren't going to say what it was, obviously, because you're going to need to know, but we were going to be involved in this evacuation of London. And a friend of mine said to me, he says, well, how would you evacuate London?
All right, let me stop you because, again, this is so bombshell. It's not that they're just planning for a contingency. They're saying this is going to happen.
They're saying that we, as security officers, are going to be involved in the evacuation of London. That's what I've got. That's my quote. That's what's written down. It's not a possible evacuation. I've said that. I said, well, maybe it's a possible evacuation because this sounds crazy. But actually, they're talking about, they said, you're going to be involved in the evacuation of London and you will be dealing with members of the public.
Okay, I've talked to Gosling, journalist there in England, radio show there in the country. Great scoops he gives us routinely. He's one of the guys that really discovered where Bilderberg would be first this year. He can vouch for you. You sound credible, but if you are credible, and this follows the paradigm, we've got a lot of leaks that this is coming already. If this is credible, buddy, you better come out quick with who you are. I know you want to keep going in and getting intel, but they're going to discover who you are, and you could end up... I mean, they've killed people involved in the Rupert Murdoch investigation, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
I mean, stay there. I mean, you know how many people they killed who were in British intelligence, who had a conscience and went public how they were really running the IRA. This is hardcore. Stay there, sir. We'll be right back. Wow. You know, I wish that this story wasn't credible in my mind for this investigative journalist who we'll just call Lee. But I've seen it over and over again. I mean, 7/7 was a government event. You can go look up the research on it, run by MI6. Even came out, they had a former high-level FBI counterterrorism guy, John Loftus, went on Fox News and exposed it. And it was in the British papers. But it's like, okay, the head of the bombings, MI6, they set up some guys in a drill. Some of them figured it out and ran, got killed. This guy's got a lot of courage we're talking to. Lee, you've worked these IRA cases being staged by British intelligence with the FBI and others. You know a bunch of those guys got killed, including investigative journalists. I mean, you've got a lot of courage. Why are you doing this?
Because, well, A, it's in the public interest to know these things. Because if you don't know what's going on, then you can't defend against anything. If you know that the security is lax, that you know that they're actually going to turn off the walk-through metal detectors at peak times to get people into the stadium. There won't be any metal detectors on going into that stadium, and someone could basically walk through with a bomb, and you're not going to know because it's not going to ping because it's not going to be on. People need to know this. If you've got tickets and going to the Olympics, or if you're working at the Olympics, you need to know, and that's what whistleblowing is all about. You come out and you say, hey, look, this is in the public interest. I'm not doing this to be a hero. In fact, actually, I'm endangering my life by telling you this. But it's in the public interest for people to know these facts, and that's why I do it. Because, you know, I care about people. I care about people in my country and from around the world, and I don't want to see anything happen to them at the London Olympics or for any other event or on the tube or anything.
What do you think the defining moment could be? A terror attack, a bioweapon released, and then the troops appear from NATO and UN to save everyone, and, oh, we learn how great it is to be occupied? Because I know they've done those drills here, NLEO 9, NLEO 10, NLEO 11. People can look those up. I mean, what do you think's happening? What are they planning to do with 100,000 troops?
You know, I really don't know. However, what I've sort of been speculating on is the fact that what would make people want to leave London, and basically it's going to be a bioweapon of some kind. You know, if a bomb goes off at the stadium, yeah, it needs to be, quite a large bomb or anything, but it won't be a nuclear bomb or anything like that. It will be a bomb, and it will just go off one of these probably high-velocity air bombs that they've got now, and they'll say it's a biological weapon, and it won't be. They'll just say it. And then the troops will come in, and people will want to leave London. People will be desperately getting out.
Well, number one, I mean, I don't get scared of big crowds, but I don't like it. I mean, I remember being a kid at a Dallas Cowboys game and going, man, what happened if something just instinctively, a child, I couldn't put my finger on it, but now I know, instinctively, if there's a stampede, a fire, whatever, it's a death trap. And this will have to be investigated, obviously, further. I hope your story is inaccurate, but from credible sources, they say you're credible, and this fits the MO. It's all theater to begin with. Now, could the supervisor have been mistaken about what he was told? How many people told you that there will be this big defining event?
Well, 2 trainers were in the room at any one time. There's one trainer giving the presentation and another trainer basically sitting in the corner and checking what they say. And
so this is standard training, is that a big defining moment's coming up?
That's right. 800 people a day have gone through that training centre, and every 800 people that go through have been told this.
And so the rest of the story is the media needs to go vet your story, but they won't, telling us it's probably true. We'll be right back. All right, I'm coming down off of the blood-pumping, headache-inducing anger over the global crime syndicate and its private collection agency with the private Federal Reserve, the IRS, quasi-government, running my health care and grabbing money out of my bank account, being upheld by the Supreme Court after the sucker punch of saying it wouldn't be. We knew that was a fraud. Hospital stocks soar on Supreme Court's ruling to uphold Obama's signature health care law. And I had a moron call in earlier and say the insurance companies didn't write it when they're on record bragging the head of their lobby. All over the news saying, I mean, it's just these poor little mainline liberals are like little children. They just have no idea. And now the Supreme Court says it's a tax to the private insurance companies. I mean, just... And they just can't understand that. They just can't get it's a big scam and they're a schmuck. Let's go to Lee, investigative journalist. I'll just leave it at that. The articles are up at Infowars.com and Prisonplanet.com. I obviously want to get you back up on the nightly news sometime next week as we get closer to all of this. The rest of the story is that you've tried to already get this to national media, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a contact at Channel 4 News who I regularly work with, and this story was actually originally going to go out through him, and he basically told me, he said, there's a blackout on this story, we're not doing it. And I said, oh. So I tried my other contacts, the other major media, and they said, we're not going to do anything that's going to go against the Olympics. And I was like, well, how do I get this story out? And the fabulous Tony Gosling said, he invited me onto his show, so we could break the story that way. I couldn't even get it into a paper, or anything like that. So that's why I turned to Tony Gosling, and he's great, and his show was amazing. We've had an amazing response from it.
Well, we need to get this out to people because I've never had so much chatter and sources that won't name themselves for a couple months saying, watch the Olympics, something's big is going to happen. And we know it. We know the Germans would stage the deal at the Olympics in '72. I mean, that's admitted in One Day in September, Academy Award-winning documentary. And again, the whole movie is about Islamic terrorists and everything. And at the end, they admit, by the way, we staged it with them.
Hello?
Yes, are you there?
Yes, no, I'm here. Yeah, great. Sorry, I thought you'd gone then.
No. I'm just marveling that they may go ahead with this even though you've exposed it. That's how dumb they think we are.
Well, yeah, and, one of the reasons why, I wanted to expose it was to hopefully to say, hey, look, we know something's wrong. We don't know exactly what you're going to do, but you're going to do something and hopefully expose this so that they change their plans and do nothing. That's my hope. I mean, there's 4 weeks to go, and I'm trying to get this everywhere I possibly can. I mean, one example was that they were faking the bomb checks in the stadium for the past 3 years, and that came out the other day in a newspaper here. And a couple of guys from G4S got sacked. But, it hasn't gone any higher than that. They said, oh, well, it's these guys' fault. If you're faking the bomb checks in the stadium for the past 3 years, you put your name to it, that is fraud. And that needs to be a criminal investigation. But, of course, no one investigates G4S. They're actually above the law, and that's what worries me.
I want to set you up for the nightly news with an in-depth commercial-free interview, Lee. Thank you so much. We'll be in contact today, and thank you for all the work you're doing, and I look forward down the road. Hopefully at some time you can reveal your identity after you've been employed there. Are you planning to do that?
Yes, absolutely, sir. I will do that. It's the big reveal.
All right, well, we'll do that in the aftermath, and hopefully we can avert this false flag. We have a special guest coming up to give us his medical take on what's happening with government-run healthcare straight ahead. And I've got CBS News is going to be here to interview me. And not a good day to interview me, probably.
Hi, this is Alex Jones. Did you know that the global...
We are into hour number 3. And for the next 30 minutes, I wanted to get Dr. Joel Wallach on today. And then we're going to get him back on the nightly news tonight for a more in-depth discussion. And we also are going to get, speaking of that's why I said Dr. Doug Rocky back on to get his take on government-run mandated health care. And we're also going to get Dr. Russell Blaylock on, MD, brain surgeon, who really breaks down the horrors of government-run health care. More news and your phone calls coming up at the bottom of the hour. For folks that are holding, you can either hold or disconnect. But we will be taking calls as well as I did for much of the last hour. How they voted. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion. He was joined by Sotomayor, Breyer, Ginsburg, and Kagan. Kagan, who helped codify the Romney healthcare plan with the insurance companies. So she was the one in the White House codifying it for the insurance companies. Who incidentally, Daily Mail and Associated Press report, hospital stocks soar on Supreme Court's ruling to uphold Obama's signature health care law. Insurance companies wrote it. They bragged they did. It makes 35 million people buy the health care and allows them to control what procedures you can get from MD-directed medicine. Also part of this tyranny is they're going after the herbalist, everybody else. It's on. They admit, by the way, the Supreme Court, I have the ruling right here. It's everywhere. You can't miss it. They're saying the government has the power to tax, really, without representation. And so you now pay your taxes to the insurance companies owned by the big 6 mega banks. That's what this is. Your taxes directly to the banks. That's what needs to be pointed out here. I'm not seeing any articles. They're all saying it's a tax to the government. No, it's not. It's a tax to the big mega banks who, if you go back to the 20s, had the reports put out through Congress to start trying to restrict all the other 4 branches of medicine and to create this monolithic system. And then they sold that plan to the Germans, who accelerated it faster. The first people Hitler killed was through the medical system. That's all on record. The Soviets use it as well as a tyranny. And I wanted to get Dr. Joel Wallach, and over the next few days and next week, we're going to have Dr. Eisenstein.